Thank you again. Hello and welcome everyone who joined. We appreciate your presence today, and we're excited to kick off this very fantastic webinar, Youth Cannabis Education and Prevention Campaign and Your Part. So first off, my name is Sarah Grace, and I'm excited to be your host today. For those of you just joining, please feel free to use the chat feature throughout the webinar. And first off, we are going to take care of some housekeeping. Attendees are automatically muted when joining Zoom. At the end of this presentation, there will be a live question and answer session. So we'd love for you to submit any questions that you might have using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And then lastly, the webinar slides and a recording will be available after this presentation. We'll be sharing it out via email. So keep a lookout in your inbox over the next week or two. And then next up, at the end of this presentation, we will also be sharing a survey link that's going to be sent to your email as well. This is it so we can get your feedback specifically on the webinar and allow you to ask any additional questions. So please make sure to click on that link and complete the survey, as we'd love to have your feedback. And moving on, it's my pleasure to introduce your presenters for this webinar. Again, I'm Sarah Grace, and I'll be your host today. We will also hear from Jessica Huang, CDPH's Cannabis Program Specialist, and also Christina Malave, an Associate Account Director at Rescue Agency. Now I'd like to take you through our agenda for today. First off, we're going to be starting off with introductions for SAPB, Rescue Agency, Health Behavior Marketing, and then do a quick recap of our previous research and webinar. Then we'll be introducing our initiatives to address youth cannabis use, including campaign goals, and then the campaigns themselves. Next, we will share the campaign materials and how you can get involved at the local level. Then we'll highlight some local opportunities and future events with our counties. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up with that Q&A session. So again, be sure to drop any questions you might have in that Q&A feature. All right, it's time for our very first poll of the webinar. This question will be, how important do you think it is to educate young people about the potential risks of cannabis use? Is it A, very important, B, somewhat not important, no opinion, somewhat not important, or not important at all? Please go ahead and answer in the pop-up that appears on your screen. All right, if everyone has their answers in, we can go ahead and show the results. All right, a majority of you said very important. That is great to hear. So now I'll go ahead and pass it to the California Department of Public Health Cannabis Program Specialist, Jessica Huang.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you to you all for joining us today. We're very excited to share more about our campaign with you today. So first of all, I'd like to start off with introducing you to the Substance and Addiction Prevention Branch of the California Department of Public Health. So our Substance and Addiction Prevention Branch, also known as SAPB, was founded in 2020, and our branch aims to reduce individual, social, and environmental harms caused by substance-related and addictive disorders, and we do this via research-driven prevention, education, and treatment. SAPB's work focuses on youth cannabis prevention, overdose prevention, problem gambling prevention and treatment, as well as alcohol harms prevention. So our Youth Cannabis Prevention Initiative is funded via Proposition 64, and we use health education and policy system and environmental approaches to support youth, parents, and our community partners in educating and preventing youth cannabis use. The objective of our Youth Cannabis Education and Prevention Media campaign is to conduct statewide efforts to create positive behavior change among youth ages 13 through 17 regarding underage cannabis use. And as part of our campaign efforts, we're also supporting counties, local communities, all of you in your efforts to do the same.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. Hello, everyone. I am Christina Malave, Senior Account Supervisor at Rescue Agency, and I've been helping to oversee the campaign development process for the state of California's Youth Cannabis and Prevention Initiative. So just to give you a quick little background on Rescue, we're a behavior change agency. So what that means is we're not your typical advertising and marketing agency. We've been around for more than 20 years, working exclusively on positive behavior change programs. So we use an equitable by design model, which is a framework that we developed to really create equitable programs. So we're focused on making positive behaviors easier and more appealing to those who need more support from our communications campaign. So really focusing on those populations that need our messaging the most. We work on health behaviors such as tobacco, cannabis, nutrition, substances, sexual health, alcohol use, and more. And we provide services like research, strategy, creative, campaign implementation, media, and evaluation to our clients. We also use a really scientific approach that allows our messaging to focus on what's going to be most effective in causing positive behavior change in our audiences. So let's dive into the background on youth cannabis behavior change specifically. So the problem that we're seeing with our teenagers today is, they're really associating weed with bonding with their friends and managing stress and emotions and escaping from the issues that might be around them in the world. Especially since COVID, this has been extremely exacerbated among our youth. And there really is this youth kind of mental health crisis that teenagers are really leaning towards cannabis to escape the issues they might be facing. In reality, we know that cannabis can harm their growing brains and impact the things that they really care about. So our teens really need messages that are in scope. So science-based, we're presenting our information in a way that's neutral, that's really important, and fact-based and credible. So our messages, they're coming from near to peer sources, not really authority figures. We know that teenagers want to hear from people that are just like them, that they look up to within their similar age range. Open. So messages, they must tell the whole honest story and empower teens to make their own decisions. That's really important too. Teenagers want to be independent. Of course, that's kind of the stage of life that they're in. Pertinent. So our messages really have to show the consequences that matter to teens. So you'll see in some of our spots, we focus on, spending time with friends and making memories, things that could be at risk when they use weed when they're young. And then empathetic. So really, acknowledging the challenges that teenagers are facing and making them feel seen and heard is really important in our messaging. So now I'll pass it over to Jessica to talk about the research.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. So now I'm going to share some key findings from our formative research, which we conducted back in 2021. So during our formative research, we found that teens really care about their mental health. As Christina indicated, they openly shared their challenges, especially around the COVID-19 pandemic. They indicated that it impacted their friendships. It was harder for them to find a job, which was very important to them. During the statement testing portion of our formative research, teens also indicated that they were surprised by messaging that noted cannabis use could cause anxiety and depression. Teens also shared that they have a desire to hear non-judgmental information. They're interested in straightforward messaging, and they're also interested in knowing the science behind any facts that are provided. So that kind of allows them to look into the science and to help them make an informed decision for their own health. So during our formative research, we found that youth have two main reasons for using cannabis. So they use cannabis to socialize, to have fun, and to bond with their friends. They also use cannabis to cope and escape from mental health challenges, and oftentimes to just get through their day-to-day stressors. So really, we found here that youth cannabis use really impacts the two key pillars of mental health, which includes a teen's social and emotional health. The use of cannabis for coping with stress and mental health issues is concerning, as we know that there is a mental health epidemic among United States youth, which has really been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So as we developed our campaign messaging and our campaign's creative concepts, it was very critical for us to view cannabis use among youth with a lens of empathy, compassion, and support. So here is a previous webinar recap. So we had our last webinar in October of 2022, and it was called Addressing Youth Cannabis Use and Adult Influence. So you can see some of the learnings that we shared for both our youth and our parent and guardian audience. So we shared quite a bit of information. We went pretty far in depth into our formative research. So if that's something that you may be interested in, our webinar recording is available on our website. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that recording. In addition, if you also want to know more about our formative research, we do have our formative research executive summary available on our website as well. So that also contains some key findings that we found during formative research. All right, with that being said, I still wanted to provide you all with some background and some key takeaways from our formative research. So you have that information as you learn about our creative concepts later on in this presentation. So we conducted formative research from June to December of 2021. We spoke to a diverse range of participants from across the state with specific considerations for gender, race, and ethnicity. We spoke to tweens, teens, and parents and guardians. So we conducted a total of 23 focus groups, 21 in-depth interviews, and this was comprised of 104 participants. We conducted our focus groups with parents and guardians in both English and Spanish. So during our formative research, we spoke to teens across the spectrum of use. We spoke to susceptible non-triers. These are teens who have never used cannabis before, but they are at risk or susceptible to trying in the future. We also talked to teens who are experimenters and consistent users of cannabis. So those are teens who have previously or who are currently using cannabis. So we designed our messaging to meet teens where they are and based on the knowledge and their frequency of use. So you'll hear those terms mentioned again in our subsequent slides when we delve a bit more into our creative concepts. So in terms of key takeaways from our formative research, so for our youth, we found that youth have a strong sense of self. We know that they care about their mental health, they care about their brain development, memories are important to them, and that they use cannabis for the two primary reasons: to socialize and have fun with their friends, as well as to cope and escape from mental health challenges and day-to-day stressors. So for our parents and guardians, they indicated to us that they are concerned about youth cannabis use. However, they're unsure of how and when to talk to their teens, and they also think that their teens might not listen to them. So in our creative concepts, we're really aiming to remind parents and guardians that they do have influence on their children, and that having those ongoing conversations and those initial conversations about the risks of cannabis use can help prevent future misuse. And our concepts, as well as our supporting materials, are really aiming to support them in having those conversations. All right, so now I'll kick it back to Sarah so she can start our second poll question.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. For poll number 2, what percentage of 11th graders are current cannabis users? Is it A, 2%, B, 5%, C, 10%, or D, 16%? I'll give you a few seconds to go ahead and enter your answers into the poll that's popped up. All right, let's go ahead and check out those answers. Ooh. All right, and the correct answer is 16%. And Chris, thank you for adding that answer or dropping that into the chat. Current usage. This data is from the California Healthy Kids Survey, which is from the 2019 data, but it's the most current data that we have right now. So right now it's currently 16%. And now I can pass it back to Jessica to walk through some of our initiatives.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So now I'm going to talk about our initiatives to address youth cannabis use. So the primary audience for our campaign is youth ages 13 through 17. So cannabis initiation typically starts around 13 to 14 years of age. Our youth audience is receiving 75% of our campaign messaging and media buy. So the secondary audience for our campaign is our parents and guardians. Parents and guardians are receiving messaging in both English and Spanish, and our parents and guardians are receiving campaign messaging and media buy, or they're receiving 25%, of our campaign messaging and media buy. So our campaign has 4 primary aims. So the first is to educate youth ages 13 through 17 about the risks and impacts associated with cannabis use. 2, we're looking to influence youth attitudes, social norms, and perceptions of cannabis use. We're also educating parents and guardians to support initial and ongoing conversations with their teens about cannabis. And we've also developed toolkits and resources for our community. So that includes our mentors, local health departments, community-based organizations, and partners. All right, so now I'll pass it back to Sarah for our third poll question.
Amazing. Thank you, Jessica. For poll question number 3, what types of messaging do youth connect with regarding cannabis education and prevention? Is it A, scare tactics or fear-based messaging, appealing to their sense of self, peer pressure, or addressing their reasons for use? Or is it both B and D or both C and D? Go ahead and answer in the pop-up on your screen. All right, let's go ahead and see those answers. All right, a majority of you got it. The answer is both B and D, which is appealing to their sense of self and addressing their reasons for use. So now I'll go ahead and pass it to Christina Malave to introduce the campaigns.
Thank you so much, Sarah. All right. So speaking of messaging that connects with our youth, we're going to dive into our Mind Over Marijuana campaign. If, of course, you're locally located in California, so you might have seen some of our ads on billboards in your area or on social or digital or connected TV platforms. But if you go on to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our brand promise. So for Mind Over Marijuana and some of the insights that Jessica shared really drove kind of this brand promise, but we need to serve as a teen's go-to source for factual and accurate information and really appeal to kind of the impacts that we can have on their social, emotional, and physical well-being. So that's really our brand promise for Mind Over Marijuana, and you'll see that carried through across all of our messaging. Some of the values that we care about on the next slide. Again, Jessica shared some great insights earlier. So we know that teens care about their mental health and openly share their challenges. And this is something we see really prevalently in this generation. They're all about keeping it real. So Mind Over Marijuana also has to do just that. Again, they were, surprised around messaging that was correlated between cannabis use and anxiety and depression. So they really wanted to know the science. And, what that means is Mind Over Marijuana isn't here to preach. We're here to give them the facts and allow them to make the decisions for themselves. And again, that kind of empowerment note that we were speaking about earlier. They want to feel seen and heard. So that means we need to share non-judgmental information and really make them, feel accepted by that. And finally, we need our messaging to feel relevant. So a lot of times that teenagers, they want the receipts and we have to be ready to give them to them. So making sure that our facts that we're sharing with them and our messaging is really relevant to them is very important for this audience. So our flagship videos are File Not Found and Comes Back. So they're geared towards 2 different kinds of ends of the spectrum of cannabis use, right? So there's people who may have not tried cannabis before, and there are teenagers who are consistently using it. So we found that focusing on memories and time with friends, and not wanting to lose those memories was an impactful message for really both ends of the spectrum, but especially those who haven't tried weed yet. Or who are starting to experiment with weed a little bit. So let's watch how File Not Found reaches this audience.
They say you never know the true value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Happy moments, funny moments, shared moments, memories that shape who we are. They could all be at risk. But using weed before your brain is done growing can change the way your brain works. The THC in weed can impact your attention and ability to remember things. And that's something you can't get back. Learn more at mindovermarijuana.com.
Great. So, and secondly, Comes Back is another spot that we developed where, it really acknowledges that teens are dealing with a lot of stress today and they're turning to weed to escape those problems, which isn't really truly making those problems go away. It can actually make them feel harder to manage. So this message we knew, according to our research, resonated with this audience. Anxiety, stress is something they're really open to talking about and they, experience in their daily lives. So, while this was geared towards consistent users, it really also resonated across both ends of the spectrum. So let's watch this Comes Back spot.
Life can be a lot sometimes. Weed might seem like a harmless way to deal with stress, but using it in your teens can have the reverse effect. That's because the THC in weed can attach to the receptors in your brain that control fear and anxiety, making it harder to manage stress and anxiety on your own. So while you think your problems are going away, they're actually still waiting for you. Learn how to manage stress without weed at mindovermarijuana.com.
All right. So you can see how both of these videos really, are leading with that empathy piece and acceptance piece and making this generation feel seen, which is really important to them. On the next slide, we also have our media plan. So you can kind of see a very high level view of the channels that we are live on currently, and have been since the end of January of this year. So, it's a really digital focused campaign, of course, because we know this generation doesn't live on their phones, they live inside of their phones, right? So they're constantly, using their social media all the time. We know that YouTube and TikTok are the biggest channels for teenagers. So we have a, kind of a big presence on those channels. And we do also have some other touch points outside of digital, like out of home. So you may have seen a billboard or over the top online video or radio, and our landing page, of course, which hosts all of our memory effects, stress effects, and the research for teenagers and some support resources that they can use or reach out to if they, are experiencing mental health issues or trying to manage their stress and anxiety. There's a lot of different tips and resources on the website. So definitely feel free to check out the website if you haven't yet. And I'll pass it back to Sarah for our poll question number 4.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. So this is our last poll question for today, and it is a little bit longer. So for this question, it's among youth, what is the most believable statement and most motivating statement for youth not to use cannabis? A, people who use marijuana regularly for a long time report decreased overall life satisfaction, including poor mental and physical health, memory, and relationship problems, lower salaries, and less career success. Or marijuana smoke exposes users to heavy amounts of ammonia, hydrogen cyanide, and other toxic chemicals that are also found in tobacco smoke. Or lastly, when other siblings use substances, their younger siblings are more likely to use those substances too. So go ahead and pick what you think is the most believable and motivating statement in the pop-up on your screen. All right, let's go ahead and check out those answers. All right, this one's a little bit more split. We have actually the correct answer is B, marijuana smoke exposes users to heavy amounts of ammonia, hydrogen cyanide, and other toxic chemicals that are also found in tobacco smoke. And interestingly enough, this is one of the lower chosen answers. So I'm glad that we all learned something interesting today. And I'm actually going to continue into introducing our Parent and Guardian campaign. We're very excited. This campaign is both English and it's available in both English and Spanish languages. And the campaign is called Let's Talk Cannabis and Hablemos de la Marihuana. So moving on, we'd like to share our brand promise with you all. This campaign strives to support parents and guardians in their efforts to create healthy environments to help prevent youth cannabis use. And then moving into our mission and approach. For our mission, we aim to empower California parents and guardians to have regular and ongoing risk conversations with youth and equip them with the information and tools that they need to have open and honest conversations. And with that comes our approach to deliver clear, unbiased information that parents and guardians can trust and reference regarding underage cannabis use. We offer guidance and resources on how to have open and honest conversations about the risk of youth cannabis use with teens. We also have 3 main pillars of our approach. We aim to empower parents and guardians by reminding them of the influence that they have on youth cannabis behavior. We also educate parents and guardians on the risks of underage cannabis on a youth's emotional, social, and physical well-being. And lastly, we equip parents and guardians with the tools and tips they need to have productive cannabis risk conversations. Now moving on, we'd love to show you the amazing creative we've put together. We created a spot titled Keep Trying, and this was filmed with bilingual actors. That way we can ensure that our message is authentically reaching both English and Spanish speaking audiences. So let's go ahead and play the English version.
Hey, can I ask you something?
It's not about all the times your teen shuts you down. It's about the times they don't. Believe it or not, you're still their biggest influence. Having ongoing conversations with your teens about the risks of cannabis cuts their chance of future misuse.
Hey, can I ask you something?
I guess.
Ask questions
How you been feeling?
and take time to listen to their experiences. Find more helpful tools at letstalkcannabis.cdph.ca.gov.
All right, now let's go ahead and watch the Spanish version.
¿Te puedo preguntar algo?
No se trata de todas las veces que su adolescente le ignora. Se trata de las veces cuando sí le escucha. Aunque no lo crea, usted sigue siendo su mayor influencia. Hablar frecuentemente con sus adolescentes acerca de los riesgos de la marihuana ayuda a prevenir su uso indebido en el futuro.
Oye, ¿te puedo preguntar algo?
Sí, bueno.
Hable con ellos abiertamente sobre el tema y escuche lo que tengan que decir. Encuentra más recursos en marihuana.cdph.ca.gov.
All right, thank you. Now let's go ahead and move on. I wanted to share the media plan with you all. So for the Parent and Guardian campaign, we know that based on our research, that this audience spends a decent amount of time online, and this is why we're also utilizing some more unique channels like Reddit and Pinterest, along with our other digital channels and out-of-home assets. We also have the website available in English and Spanish on the cdph.ca.gov website that has additional resources, materials, tips on having those conversations with youth. And again, everything is in English and in Spanish, so that's available for our different language audiences. Now, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Jessica to go through our campaign materials.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. All right, so we're excited to share with you some campaign materials that we've developed for your use. So we have put together a parent and guardian toolkit, a community toolkit, as well as 3 downloadable fact sheets for your use. So we developed these materials utilizing some information that we received via 2 surveys that we disseminated. So we disseminated a community needs assessment survey as well as a local partner needs form that consisted of responses from 77 local partners and 129 mentors of youth from across California. So I know some of you on this webinar may have been respondents in those surveys, so we really appreciate your feedback. So we created these materials based on the feedback that we received. Respondents indicated that toolkits and fact sheets would be most beneficial to their work and have the biggest impact on the youth that they serve. So for our parent and guardian toolkit, it's designed specifically for parents and guardians. So it contains information on cannabis and its impacts on the teen developing brain. There are also talking points for parents and guardians, as well as a conversation guide. And within that conversation guide, there are some questions, tough to answer questions that parents and guardians could receive from teens. And we've provided some recommended responses to those questions. So we've also developed a community toolkit. So our community toolkit is designed for community leaders, mentors, and adult role models. And when we say adult role models here, we're referring to teachers, coaches, et cetera, any mentors for youth. So similarly, this community toolkit contains information on how cannabis impacts the teen developing brain. There are talking points as well as a conversation guide that are specifically geared toward our community leaders, mentors, and adult role models. So in addition, we've also developed 3 downloadable fact sheets. So these fact sheets are 1-page documents. So they're great to be printed out as handouts, and they just provide like a high-level overview on these 3 topics. So our first fact sheet contains information on cannabis, and its impacts on the teen brain, and provides the science and facts regarding that information. In addition, we also have a fact sheet on how cannabis impacts teen mental health. And then our third fact sheet focuses on frequently asked questions as well as a conversation / discussion guide. So our parent and guardian toolkit is currently available on our website. It's available in both English and Spanish. Our community toolkit and our downloadable fact sheets are forthcoming. They will be posted on our website very soon. So we will send an email out to everyone once those are available. So by using these materials, we hope that they will be useful in your work to help educate youth and encourage parents to have conversations around youth cannabis use. So as you're going through these materials, if you have any questions or if you need any additional support, please feel free to reach out to our cannabis inbox. It's cannabis@cdph.ca.gov. All right. So in addition, we've also developed some sample media assets for your use. So we've put together pre-made social media assets. So that's basically like social media content. So like social media posts that you can put on your organization's social accounts. So you'd be able to customize those social media images with your own logo and then post them to your organization's social media accounts. So assets are available for download via email. So if you're interested in any of these pre-made assets, please go ahead and contact us at our cannabis@cdph.ca.gov email inbox. And we'd be happy to send you the files and any files that work best with your organization's social media accounts. So you can see here are some example images of those pre-made assets. So in addition to sending you images, we also have some suggested captions to accompany these images as well that you can post on your social media. So we'll also provide that content to you as well. So again, if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to email us. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to Christina, and she'll talk about some of our upcoming community engagement work.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jessica. All right. So on the next slide, we kind of have, our community engagement overview here. We will be hosting some quarterly learning webinars. So we'll be able to share some materials, some research, and many more things. So kind of like this webinar. So we'll be hosting those throughout the next few months. And then we also are aiming to attend in-person and virtual events throughout California starting this month. So I think we might have some Friday Night Live partners on the call, but we will be probably attending some Friday Night Live conferences as well as some events we had just started reaching out to within Humboldt County and some other places throughout California. So we're really seeking opportunities for, our campaign representatives to come and support local organizations, much like yourselves at events, and share some of our knowledge and our resources around the risks of youth cannabis use on the ground level. So please let us know where and when we can support you by taking our post-webinar survey. So we will send you a link to the survey where you can submit any events that you may be interested in having us attend, either in person or virtually. And I know I saw a question in the chat earlier. I believe it was from Emily about funding. So I will pass it over to Jessica to give a little local health jurisdiction funding grant announcement.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. So as some of you may know, we did release a request for applications to fund, support, and expand local activities in the areas of youth cannabis education and prevention. So I am excited to announce that we did award 5 contracts to local health jurisdictions. So those awardees were notified via email this past Monday, May 15th. So we're very excited for these LHJs to begin that work, and we look forward to sharing some of their work in upcoming webinars, as well as correspondences.
All right, and I think that is time for Q&A.
Yes. So it's the Q&A time. If there's any questions that you've had, please go ahead and continue to add them to the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, and we will do our best to answer them. We did already get a few questions coming in, so I'll go ahead and start us off with those. We got a question that said, will Mind Over Marijuana discuss the increased risk to psychosis and schizophrenia? Jessica or Christina, did you want to go ahead and hop in there?
Yeah, I think I actually answered this one in the chat, the general chat. So feel free to check that out. But essentially, I think that Heidi kind of saw this as well, but we have this in our Mind Over Marijuana facts on the website. It is mentioned there on the research page. So again, I think we saw with that poll question number 4, I was saying we're always being proven wrong by what teenagers think is most motivating versus what we may think may be most motivating to them. So while it is a very important topic and something that we do feature on the website and in some of our digital assets, it just wasn't something that made it into the 30-second spots that we watched today, but definitely something very important that we have within our campaign.
And I can add on to that as well. In the Let's Talk Cannabis toolkits, there's also mention of psychosis and schizophrenia in there, just under some general health facts with cannabis regarding underdeveloped brains. So it's implemented throughout our campaign as well. So just wanted to add that there. And then the next question we have is, our county uses our own campaign materials for youth prevention. Can this campaign be used in conjunction with these previous materials?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's great to hear that your organization or county has existing materials. So they can definitely be used in conjunction with any current materials that you have.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and see. Let's see. And then how long will this campaign last?
So this campaign will be out through June of this year, but that is in reference specifically to the media. So all our media content will be out through June. However, we'll be continue to do community engagement events throughout the summer. So if there's any, opportunities or community engagement events in which you'd like one of our campaign representatives to attend, please feel free to email us. You'll also be getting a survey following this webinar where you can also include that information. We'd love to attend any events to spread the word about our campaign and help provide education.
Perfect. And then let's see. Are there any consequences to the mental health angle? It seems like mental health could be a complicated topic with some teens, and they might not be ready to talk about it. Christina or Jessica, did you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I can jump in. So yeah, definitely the mental health angle, there's a lot of nuance around it, and something that we are, very cognizant of is, essentially making sure none of the ads that we put together are triggering and things like that. So while we know it is a tricky angle, it is one that is really important for our youth audience and something that they openly are sharing about and interested in talking about. So while it definitely, we could see how that could be a tricky kind of angle and everything, but we are making sure we're, providing some resources and essentially providing support for those who may be experiencing struggles and stresses and anxiety.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of Christina, on our Mind Over Marijuana website, we do have mental health resources for teens. So we included that. So if they want further information or if they need any support, that they have those resources available to them.
Wonderful. Also, I'm seeing in the chat, we're looking for some Facebook pages, so I can go ahead and drop those in shortly. And then for the next one, can you expand a little bit more on the local events? What will these look like, and are these hosted by CDPH?
I can go ahead and jump in there. Around our community engagement, we're really plan to kind of attend community events We're kind of open to what the needs are within the community. We can certainly present on youth cannabis education and prevention. If you have certain topics that you would like us to speak about, we'd be happy to do it at any type of like conference, or if you have local meetings in which you think that, you know, the attendees might be interested, that's something we could do. We're also like open to tabling and things like that. So I think we're really looking to see, you know, what the county and community needs are, and we're happy to kind of tailor to your needs.
Sounds great. And then we're getting a couple more even in the main channel. Will dual use of marijuana and tobacco be addressed in the campaign? Let's see. Yeah, will the dual use of marijuana and tobacco be addressed in the campaign?
So for this specific campaign, we're focused on cannabis since we receive this funding specifically via Proposition 64 funding. But we know that, you know, the intersection of tobacco and cannabis is, you know, a topic of interest among counties and among the community. So we've certainly kept this in mind, and we may, you know, consider this for future campaigns or for future program resources. This is definitely something we've kept in mind, and we appreciate your feedback.
Perfect. I have another question here. It says, will we be able to get a certificate of attendance for this training? Jessica, I think that might be a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, we aren't per se distributing certificates of attendance. However, if that's something you would like, I'd be happy to put together an email or something that would suit your needs. So feel free to contact our cannabis inbox, and I can go ahead and put together something for you.
Perfect. And then, is there work that's happening with partnering with schools? It looks like this person feels that youth are partaking in cannabis use with friends, and that might be happening on a school campus. So is there any work happening with schools? I could probably hop in for this one. With our events that we're doing, we are reaching out to partners that do work closely with schools, like Friday Night Live and other 2B coordinators. So there may be some school influence there as well, but we're not partnering, or we have not reached out or heard back from school districts in particularly who are looking for that partnership. But if there's anyone who's on this call and is working with schools and is interested in creating that partnership, we'd love to hear you out. And in that post-webinar survey, we do have an event submission in there. So we'd love to hear about what's coming up, what you feel like that partnership could look like. We'd love to come share our resources and present and speak on behalf of the campaign. And then let's see. We have another one that says, will your department be tracking suicidality and cannabis use through state epidemiology, data? And I think that might be a question for our CDPH research team. Jessica, I know they're not currently on the call, but I know we can answer some questions via email. Christina, that was your question. If you can email us at the cannabis.cdph.ca.gov email, I'm sure we'd be happy to answer that, unless Jessica, you have anything to add here on the call.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up, Christina. Yeah, I think that's a great question and something we can bring up to our research team. So again, if you can send that through our cannabis inbox, I can go ahead and connect with our research team, and we can follow up with you via email.
And then we have another question here. Do teens typically request help after education campaigns? How will teens find out how to get help if they're having trouble reducing their use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of, teens reaching out for help, we do definitely see there are a lot of barriers to, reach out to specific sources for help. Typically, we try to encourage them to talk to a trusted adult, talk to someone in their life that they feel comfortable sharing with, and also anything, that's that can bring some of the barriers down of like seeing someone in person or things like that are usually helpful too. So you'll notice on the Mind Over Marijuana website, we have some text resources and online support, so that, could be a little bit easier for them to reach out there.
Awesome. Let's see what else we have in the queue. Are you tracking any epi data on cannabis use as a risk factor for future opioid use?
This is another great question for our research team. So we have a cannabis research team and as well as an opioid research team. So once again, if you could email us at that cannabis inbox, I can connect with both research teams and circle back with you on that.
Awesome. And let's see, I think we might have answered everything that's in the queue. Unless anyone else has any more questions, let's see. Oh, who are on the research teams?
So they have background in epidemiology. They are well versed in their fields and have done a lot of research in terms of cannabis and opioids. So they will be a great resource for you, and happy to initiate and start that conversation.
Perfect. And then I remember earlier about we had a question for the data about the 16% of current cannabis users. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the California Healthy Kids report into the webinar chat. This is the most recent data. And as more research becomes available, we can all keep you updated and everything. And we will be having future webinars as well. So we'd be happy to answer any future questions. And if anybody does have follow-up questions after this call, you can either ask them in the post-webinar survey or again, reaching out to that cannabis email at CDPH. We haven't gotten any more questions through the Q&A, so we might be able to end a little bit early today. So just wanted to say thank you all for joining. We so appreciate your time, and we hope that you enjoyed this webinar. Let's see. And then I can go ahead and pass it off to Jessica. Christina, were there any closing words that you wanted to say to everyone?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for your time. We would love to hear about any local community events that you have going on that you'd like our presence at. So definitely feel free to reach out to that cannabis email if you have anything to share. But thank you so much for attending.
And again, echoing Sarah and Christina, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. If you have any questions following this webinar, feel free to contact us. And we're here to support you in any way that we can. So thank you so much for attending today.
So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.